understand the world and themselves. So we'll try to give you a quick class about some of the principles that we use every day in our school, in every area, whether it's teaching languages or teaching the new physics or teaching our conflict management post-graduation course, which is principally what we're representing today, or our theology courses, arts courses. All of our classes are based on the work of Dr. Norberto Keppe and Dr. Claudia Pacheco. Some of you may know these people from the various videos that are exploding on the internet at the moment. And I think you'll find a lot here that will help you not only in your professional life, but your personal life, your health. All the areas of life can be sort of approached through these psychological things that we'll talk a little bit about today. We obviously won't give you all the details of things, but we will touch on a couple of key points in Dr. Keppe and Dr. Claudia Pacheco's work that will help you. I think will help you, maybe get you intrigued to find out more. So, Juliana, hello. So let's move forward. Let's go, guys. Let's jump in. Here comes Estella. Luis. Oh, hi, Luis. Nice to see you. Estella, welcome. All right, welcome, everybody. So we're going to start here. And the first thing I want to do is just give a little overview. You guys have probably, there are many, many statistics about this, but our world, as you have probably perceived, is in a real crisis situation, right? It's like we've gone down one road for thousands of years, and now we've reached what we call a dead end in English, right? Rua sem saída in Portuguese. Mm-hmm. We've got this dead end, and we can't continue the way we are. And this has caused many people, including Steven Weinberg, who's a Nobel Prize winner in physics, to say that the solutions to our scientific problems cannot be found in the traditional thinking of science, traditional scientific thinking. That if we want to solve the problems, we need new ideas and new approaches. And this is very much what analytical trilogy, the science that we use in our school, proposes. So I just brought a couple of statistics from the state of the world. You guys have probably seen variations on these statistics a lot. I won't get into too much the COVID statistics because that's still being determined. But here we have in the world, you know, a lot of people living in extreme poverty. And that has changed a little bit. We do have people who are coming out of extreme poverty, but we still see a very unequal situation on the planet where you have a very few people with massive amounts of resources and riches, and many, many people struggling to get by. And so this is a very clear condition that's happening in the world. Many full-time jobs were lost. That's in 2020. We don't even know 2021 yet. Millions of job losses. And so people are struggling with work. They lose their job. They can't find another one. And so they become Uber drivers, or they do something to try to make ends meet. It's a very difficult situation when we're losing all of these work positions for people. Puts a lot of stress on individuals, puts a lot of stress on the family. We see increased rates of depression, domestic violence, alcohol and drug abuse. Those things are not going away, you know. So although there are new careers and jobs opening up, oftentimes the jobs are opening up in areas with very few positions, as you guys probably recognize. This during the pandemic, we had like 1.6 billion students out of school for about 7 months. And anybody who has kids knows the impact of that on the kids, right? These kids not being able to socialize, not being able to be with their colleagues and their friends has caused a lot of difficulties, not to mention 7 months basically of losing school development. 7 months when you're 8 years old is like a lifetime. Now, 7 months for us as we're older, it goes by in like a week. But for kids, that's a lot of development that they're losing out on. So we have this situation in the world which is quite difficult for many people. And so I was working with a student yesterday, and she was telling me, she said, Richard, I'm at the end of my rope. I don't know if you know this expression in English. I'm like here. I can't tolerate anymore. I'm like estourando, not por dentro. I'm like exploding. And I was talking to her about the fact of the world, the pressure in the world is leading us to this. So if we want to have the ability to deal with these crisis times that we seem to be in, we need to deal with this emotional competence, right? We need to have a level of emotional competence. Sari, do you want to add anything to add here?
Well, you see the state of the world, you give the big picture, and I think in everybody's personal life, this thing with pandemic has caused lots of stress, and especially when you can not work the insecurity. In Europe, the powerful people willing to make war affairs, it's very tense in all aspects in the personal life, and then what's going on in the world and how to deal with all those things and take care of the family, the profession, the country, etc.
Yeah. So we have a situation where we have some truck drivers in Canada protesting against the loss of human rights, of personal rights, and they're being criticized by some, applauded by many, criticized by some because they're not following the law. But what the law is doing is taking away the rights that are inside the Constitution. So we don't protest against the laws that the politicians are taking away, but we protest, or we get irritated with the people who are fighting to restore those laws. So we have a lot of tension going on in the world, a lot of pressures. And how are we going to begin to deal with that? Well, that has to come from our internal stability, right? If we don't have an internal stability, how can we begin to deal with all of this change and crisis? So that's what we're talking about today. So that's the state of the world. Now, Claudia Pacheco, whom some of you know, is the director and founder of our Trilogical colleges. And she said this, she said, knowledge of the human mind is mandatory today. I think Luana was saying that she's starting a course in human resources. So this is it, my friends. There is, not that everybody has to do human resources, but we need to understand what's going on in the human mind. There are so many conflicts in human relationships, at work, in all professions, that if you don't understand what's going on in people's minds, you'll never truly succeed in your profession or your life. That's never been more important than it is today. And of course, the human mind that we need to understand is our own too, right? Not just the minds of other people. So we need this internal knowledge, this what Socrates talked about 2,500 years ago. You need to know yourself. If you don't know yourself, you won't understand other people. So it's inside the human being that we need to get this knowledge. Hello, Janet. Nice to see you. Okay, so this means we need to deal with this little thing called the psychological life. And everybody has probably seen this picture of an iceberg or similar pictures of an iceberg. And what's going on underneath the ice? This is the part that dominates us. Luana was telling us before the class that she was watching a video with one of our professors, two of our professors, Cesar Sosa and Claudia Pacheco, about the new physics, and saying, oh my God, and she studied physics in school, everything I learned at school was wrong. So we have to see that this part underneath the surface, this is dominating the human experience today. Right? We have a little bit of consciousness about things here. This is what causes us to do things, and then later we go, I can't believe I did that. What was I thinking? right? That's this psychological part under the surface that's dominating. So we work a lot with this, whether it's learning a language or studying theology or education. We're working a lot with this aspect of the human being underneath the surface, trying to bring that more into consciousness so we can actually have the knowledge that will allow us to deal with what's going on rather than just reacting automatically. You can have some consciousness, right?
This picture always impresses me. I've seen it so many times. And Richard, you are saying that the top part is the things that we see. And then there is this huge part that we don't really see. And it's this invisible part that many times is dominating our lives, but also society is dominated by its unknown part.
Yeah. And even if we don't see it, it doesn't mean that it goes away, right? Just because we don't see it doesn't mean it's not operating. So the fact that we don't see it is quite serious, because we could be leading ourselves down a path thinking that we're doing the right thing and being completely inverted, completely going in the opposite direction, thinking we're going towards success and happiness and going farther and farther and farther away because we don't understand our inverted ideas or values that are not being perceived, difficulties, problems, right? So this part underneath the surface, this is the biggest part. And, you know, Sari and I know in teaching languages, this is where people get lost. They don't get lost in the vocabulary and the grammar. They get lost in the blockages, the resistances, the internal parts. So when you think about this, where do problems arise at work? We're going to talk specifically about work in this case. If you look at how the workplace is structured today, we have all of these things very well articulated: the mission, vision, values, knowledge of the job. The best practices are very well described. Our abilities are well defined. We have standards and directives and know-how. All of that is very well articulated. Companies have communication best practices. They have them laid out, discussed. Now we have a lot of diversity issues that are being documented and discussed. Things you can say, things you can't say, ways to treat problems if it's a minority group, or if, you know, all of these things are being very, very well articulated and discussed. So they're very well knowledgeable for us. That is all very conscious. We know what they are, they're defined. However, the problems at work are not here because these things are well described, they're well laid out. The problems are here, right? Inside our toxic levels of competition, you know, where the employees are actually working against each other. The idea of being like in a tennis game, you know, if I'm competing with my partner, that's going to make both of us increase our level. This can become extremely toxic, right? Intrigue, gossip. Hey, did you guys hear what happened to Georgina? Did you guys hear? You know, this kind of stuff. This is very pernicious inside the workplace, perniciosa. Power struggles, envy and jealousy, sabotage, greed. Those are where the problems are, not up here. Up here is very well, it's very clear. You can read articles about that. There are millions of business books and personal development books that are written about mindset and about the 7 habits of highly effective people, the 10 laws of communication. You can find millions of books about that. Millions of books. What you don't know, what we don't know how to deal with is this stuff. And inside companies, managers will tell you, I spend 90% of my time dealing with these problems, right? Not those problems, these problems. Somebody's got a fight with somebody else. Somebody's got a difficulty with somebody else. So this part here, this inconscientized part, this is where the danger is. It's just like the psychological life. If we don't understand what's going on inside ourselves, if we're unconscious, this unconscious part or inconscientized part maybe better way to say it, this will dominate us. It's an interesting graphic, isn't it? Because it illustrates what happens. So all of this is articulated, talked about, discussed, written about, put into manuals that nobody reads, the mission statements in the boardroom there, beautifully written, you know. All of that is very clear in verbal form, but it's not followed because of these problems here.
And it's the upper part that we usually learn in a business school, but the lower part, it's very uncommon to have training for that the way we have in Faculdades Trilógicas.
Yeah, that's very true, Sari. This question of power struggles, you know, this is very subtle. And if a manager or director or supervisor is not aware of what goes on, they could be completely manipulated by the people underneath them in the company, right? Completely, without understanding. So we're going to talk a little bit about a basic psychological, philosophical principle that can help us to understand this better and to understand problems better. This is the basic fundamental principles of Dr. Keppe's science of analytical trilogy. Principle fundamentals. First one, I put it in English and Portuguese just in case the philosophy is a little difficult to understand. Everything that exists in itself is good, beautiful, and truthful. That's por si in Portuguese. So the essence of life is good. The essence of the creation, right, of how we are, the essence of the human being is good. That's the nature of life. We do not have this balance between good and evil that some philosophies talk about. We do not use that in our school. Our school is based on this more Christian dialectic, comes from Greek philosophy too, that the only thing that exists in itself is good. So the nature of life is good. The second part of this is that if there's evil, mal, not problems, difficulties, they don't exist in themselves. They are the denial, distortion, or destruction of goodness, truth, and beauty. So we'll show how that works in practical terms in just a minute.
It's a big question, and it takes a little bit of digestion. But I promise, if you take some time to try to understand this, you will notice that lots of your anxieties and anguishes will be relieved. Richard, you spoke earlier about the unconscious and how many of the things that happens we are not aware. I'd like to point out the difference between Freud and Keppe here, whereas Freud gave the idea that we are the victims of the unconscious, and it makes people desperate. Following what you are showing here, Dr. Keppe says, no, you have the consciousness. This is the good that exists. But you are saying no to your consciousness. We do this. We human beings reject the consciousness. That's why we don't know. But in fact, it is the consciousness that exists. And in our lives, professionally, personally, spiritually, actually, we can count on this consciousness that is there if we don't reject and deny.
So if there is anguish or feelings of desperation, those don't come from nature. They come from some attitude, individually and socially, to deny, distort, or destroy the natural goodness, truth, and beauty. And I use the example of the river, the Pinheiros River here in São Paulo, which is horribly polluted, you know. But if you go a couple of 100 kilometers outside São Paulo, the river is totally clean, right? So the natural state of the river is to be healthy. We can corrupt it. And the mistake we make is we say that the corruption is natural.
And then we discuss normally in society about policies, how to fix the river.
Right.
Whereas we should take a look, what's the cause of the problem? And stop polluting. Once we stop polluting, everything will be fine.
But that's extraordinary, Sally, because if you stop polluting the river in a very short time, it returns to normal. And what is normal? Good, beautiful, truthful, balanced, right? It's not a mixture of healthy water and polluted water, right? So this dialectic is like a fundamental principle.
And it applies to our lives too. We say, oh, there are so many problems, but how many problems are we creating? How many problems are we participating? If we stopped creating these problems, for example, in our relationships, we would automatically have better relationships.
Yeah. So, okay, so that's the philosophical concept. And now if we try to understand that in practical terms, so in this sense, oh, I wrote that in Portuguese. So anybody, I think I see my friend Susan from Vancouver here. Hi, Susan. Welcome. We could say, so what is disease? In this context, evil doesn't exist in itself. So what is disease? Disease, anguish, disturbances. These are denials, distortions, destructions of something. So simply what we see with disease, it's the distortion of something healthy. And we do that individually, too much pizza, or socially, allowing excessive amounts of agrotoxics on the plants, right?
And especially in the field of the psychological, emotional life, excessive anger, excessive fear that is not being treated. So somehow we are kind of not permitting to ourselves to be healthy.
Yeah, we're acting against our own health. And it seems so strange to say that. Why would we act against our own health? Well, this is not conscious. This is a dialectical problem where we're seeing an advantage in doing something that's not healthy, or thinking something, or feeling something that's not healthy, or holding on to an emotion, right? Holding on to some feeling I have inside me. I think I'm getting an advantage from that. Remembering, thinking about all the injustice that was done to me. There was the day that guy did that, and then a couple of weeks ago he did that. I think I'm getting an advantage by doing that. And I'm just making myself sicker. So disease, even many times how we deal with stress, comes from this attitude of thinking that this is natural, this is normal, that's just the way things are. And they're not. The world should not be as distorted and disturbed as it is, right? And we, in all of our classes and courses, all of Dr. Keppe's work, we're trying to help the human being to restore, to return to the goodness that we left behind. Even when we're kids, we can see that. We were happier when we were kids many times, right? So we forgot how to be happy. What happened to me, right? I used to be happy. Eu era feliz and não sabia, né? Mas não sabia. I was happy and I didn't even know I was happy.
Yes, when I was a kid, I didn't have any power, I didn't have any money, but I was happy. And then I learned in the society that you have to have lots of power and money to be happy, and then it all went wrong.
Great. So, if we look at this now, what is pride, arrogance, in this sense that we're talking about? If anybody wants to give me an answer in this sense that evil doesn't exist in itself, what is pride or arrogance, what you call soberba in Portuguese? What is this? Anybody want to try? Yes, Luana, go ahead.
Well, I've been through some self-knowledge stuff.
Good.
And what I have learned is when I don't recognize that there is a higher power, and when I don't recognize it, I feel separated. So immediately I think that I am the higher power, and I
There
think
we are.
everything is about me.
There we are.
That's it.
So, okay. So a person who's full of this soberba, pride, and arrogance, they refuse to put themselves in a lower position. They insist on keeping themselves above everybody else, above even, in this case, the creator, as Luana was saying, right? So it's an attitude of refusal to accept that I'm a normal human being with normal problems. I've been created. I'm not a creator. I refuse to submit to the reality of my position in the world. I insist on continuing to try to maintain myself in a superior position. Very neurotic, this, right? And it makes us really crazy, because if you think you're the best, what happens? You're a football team and you think you're the best, and then you meet another football team that's equal or even a little bit better. What's going to happen to that person? They're going to fall, and that's how you end up in 7-1. Right? The team just completely loses its ability to play. How does that happen to a Brazilian football team that they forget how to play football? It's unbelievable because of this sense that we're the best or we have to be the best. And then when you meet somebody who's equal or close to, you don't know how to respond. Oh my God, maybe I'm not the best. You start thinking, you start getting angry, frustrated. You've lost completely your emotional competence and are totally dominated. At that point, you're totally not because the other team is better, right? Because I'm distorting my ability to play. We look at dissatisfaction, insatisfaction. What is that in this context? A person who's never satisfied. What kind of attitude does that demonstrate? Your chance if you want to speak. You're free. Yes, Chris. Go ahead,
Perhaps
Chris.
that's what it happens during the World Cup between Brazil and the Netherlands.
Brazil and Germany, right? And
Oh.
Brazil and Netherlands too. Yes. Yes, in 2010. Yes, I remember very well, Chris. Yeah. That was marcante, as you say in Portuguese. Remarkable. So people completely lose their composure. So a dissatisfaction, a person who's never satisfied, they are refusing to be grateful. And they refuse to be grateful for what they have. So they think that, oh, but I'm ambitious. I want more. Yes, but it creates a lot of internal stress because I'm not accepting what I do have. And then I'm not accepting the conditions that I have, the opportunity I have to solve the problems. I'm always saying, oh, I need another course. We need another employee. I need to make more money. I need a different job. I need another position. Then I'll be happy. And we bounce around from situation to situation, from relationship to relationship, looking for that satisfaction that will never come because I'm not accepting the good things that I have now. And you can say, well, that's crazy. It is crazy. It's neurotic. And we don't have emotional competence when we're in these mentalities, when we've got this kind of thinking going on. We're out of balance. We are not connected to the truth of ourselves, which is good, beautiful, and true. Laziness. What is, anybody who knows a lazy person will know that they are very active in their laziness. They have a million excuses why they can't do something. Did you have something to add, Sari?
No, I think it's very funny to be active in laziness, but that's exactly how it works. So the person is producing this laziness. He's doing the laziness.
Yeah.
Putting all the obstacles. Why he cannot do this. It's a lot of work to be lazy. Why can I not do this and that? The justifications of it.
Chris, did you have a comment?
I'm thinking if that is not a sort of new philosophy, especially on corporate environment, when people somehow feel misuse it somehow. I don't know how to put that in better words, but what I'm trying to say is that I hear sometimes people say, "Oh, but I earned just this to do this and this and this," and it's a kind of awkward for me because it seems like there is something wrong, but I cannot fully identify where is the exact mistake, because perhaps my perception has to do to I come from a countryside where people were used to do much harder work. So what are you complaining about? And then I don't know. It's awkward for me. I don't. That's also the reason why I'm trying to breathe new air with this event, so
Good,
that
Chris,
I can learn.
Well, let me say this about that. Certainly, the corporate environment has not been healthy and is not healthy in many ways. But laziness doesn't hurt the company. It hurts me. If I'm being lazy, I'm acting against my own natural state, which is to be active, which is to produce, is to create, right? So if I'm being lazy, I'm acting against myself, not against others. Others aren't harmed by my laziness, but I sure am. So we have to understand that whatever excuse I may use, and there are lots of excuses, people who are lazy have, like they're like alcoholics. They got a billion excuses for why they can't stop drinking. It's like that. And so if I'm lazy, I'm acting against my own nature, against the nature of life, which is about production and growth. And, so I'm acting against the nature of nature. Not very intelligent. And I will suffer. Sorry, Sari, go ahead.
And the person many times thinks that he's bringing lots of benefits for the company and he's like irreplaceable, and not that the company brings benefits for him. Yeah. And he might have inside of him, without perceiving, all these kind of obstacles like envy. So he simply doesn't want to benefit anybody. But he only sees this other person. He doesn't see that what he does externally, he's also doing in his life. So this harm for his life is much bigger than actually it is for others, like Richard is saying. But with this attitude of not wanting to benefit anybody, he is not having satisfaction at work, joy, happiness, progress and development and career, for one.
Exactly. Marcella, did you have a comment?
I was going to say exactly that what Sari says, that we live in such an inverted world that the people are not, whatever the people are doing, they do without joy and happiness. They deny this beauty inside, this space, the consciousness. So if we lost it, if we lose it, we cannot, we are lazy, we keep making up excuses, it's very complicated.
It's beautifully said. Beautifully said, Marcella, because this is the essence of emotional competence, is being productive and effective in our lives. And so if we're being lazy, or this other one, procrastination, right? I mean, I'm sure nobody in the call has this problem, but I sometimes feel this, right? Usually, I don't know if you've noticed this, procrastination is usually with the important things. It's not with the secondary things. I always have time to check my email.
Exactly.
But preparing the class, that's a challenge.
Exactly.
And usually we procrastinate with things that would bring us some consciousness about ourselves. about our
Exactly.
difficulties or incompetence. I don't know how to do it, so
I don't want to face this.
yes.
Exactly.
I don't want to fix it. I don't
Yeah.
want to feel myself, the goodness.
So
Just
now
I
can you?
just want problems.
Yes, Marcella, exactly that. So now can you guys see this dialectical point now in practical life is essential. So we don't often make this connection. We're so sort of superficially practically oriented, especially coming from North America, that we think everything is about habits or about systems or techniques. And it's not. The technique or the behavior comes from a prior attitude. And I need to understand what's going on. Why am I so resistant to preparing this class, to doing this, whatever it is that I have to do? Why am I so resistant to exercising? Why am I so resistant to eating healthy? You know, what's going on there is not because I haven't found the correct diet, or I didn't find the right gym, or I don't have the right tennis shoes, right? The problem is not there. The problem is inside my own mentality, and I need to understand that. And this dialectical point is the way of goodness and evil. This dialectical point is essential for our understanding of ourselves, so we have the emotional competence to deal with what we need to deal with. Okay, so in the psychological life, we can find this question: we are what we don't know about ourselves. Meaning that what's below the surface is driving our lives. What we don't know, what is inconscientized, this is what's in control. That means that we are obligated to understand more of this, to bring more of this into consciousness, not to change it, to conscientize it, because changing it's very difficult. But if we conscientize it, we can control a little bit our laziness or our arrogance, or we can bring that a little bit under control so we have more emotional competence, more stability in life. Chris, did you have a comment?
I have a question. What attitude shall we take then? Because I was thinking, I was thinking in another way, and all of a sudden I hear conscientize is more important than change.
Yeah.
For example, at a workplace, what is the best attitude then? If somebody says, "Oh, don't be silly, you're gonna do this and that and that. Why are you gonna do that?" And you kind of you are always the one who is doing that because nobody else is doing. So, which is the best attitude within this context?
It's very difficult to give a single answer to that, of course, because it depends very much on the situation. But always we need to understand how am I reacting to this comment? How am I reacting to this situation? Right? If I'm feeling frustrated, angry, resistant, I need to understand that, because there is a resistance to some kind of consciousness, to some kind of opportunity. And I need to try to understand that better in myself. So what are these people who are making the comments? What do they represent in my life? Maybe they represent blockages to me doing what I want. I can't just do what I want. I have to answer to a team. There are various things that could be happening there, Chris, that we have to conscientize inside ourselves to find out what is the real feeling that I'm having, the real reaction that I'm having, and what does that say about me, so I can begin to deal with that.
The more you will learn about yourself, the more you will understand the other people as well.
That's exactly true. And yes, Chris, and in a minute, we'll do a little exploration of a process that can help us in this regard that we use a lot in our school, and Dr. Keppe uses a lot in his psychotherapy. It's a brilliant concept. We'll give you kind of a tool that might help you. But Chris, this self-knowledge, because the idea we really have this idea coming from North America. Everything is about fix the problem, right? Just do it, right? Nobody wants to see the cause of the problem. So everywhere in coaching, in modern psychology, in modern management, we have this mentality. Here's the problem. So let's create an action plan to solve this problem. And so we develop an action plan to move in this direction. But if we don't find out what's behind the creation of this problem, we're just going to create more problems on top of problems. And this is what happens in the world. Everything we do to try to solve an inverted thing creates more inversion. So we're going farther and farther away from a solution.
And this is so predominant in society. You can see this in medicine. The medicine wants to attack the problem, the symptom, and our medicine doesn't cure. The traditional, conventional medicine doesn't cure, because we are not seeing the causes that very much are in the psychological, emotional life of the person, and the way we have organized society to create terror on people.
And not only does medicine not cure the problem, they create more problems on top of the original problem that you had. So you start with one symptom, and after taking a stream of medicines, you have 5 or 6 symptoms or more. So and the same thing is happening in business. You know, we're layering on top of the original problem more and more solutions. You know, at agile leadership. You know, all of these term mindset management, all of these terms that come, the newest hot thing to solve the problem doesn't solve anything. It creates more problems on top of it because we haven't found the original part. One of our a good friend of mine is an engineer, an aeronautics engineer. He works with airplanes. And he says, if you have a problem in a plane, you have to do what's called a root cause analysis. It's the first step. You have to find out the root cause of the problem. Otherwise, you can't solve it. So it's fundamental, this mentality. And we are so far away from that. Everybody is going problem to the front, from the problem to the front. And nobody wants to go behind to see what are the attitudes, the systems, the ways of thinking, the mentalities behind this problem. That's where we go. That's where Dr. Keppe's life takes us. He takes us into this mentality to try to understand the root cause.
And that's what we teach in all our courses, to see this root cause of the things, to be able in your practical life to use these tools to address the root cause of the problem.
Yep. And okay, so there we are. So we are what we don't know about ourselves, and we need to understand that. So here's the methodology. Here's the man. This is the guy. This is the reason Sari and I are in Brazil. And we work with this methodology, analytical trilogy, which is the union of science with theology and philosophy. So when the modern world today is very much here, just do it. Science, right? Just do it. Just solve the problem. You know, don't bring me problems, bring me solutions. All of this kind of language that we hear. This is this aspect. But this comes from a spiritual mentality and a philosophy of life. If you don't treat these, you'll never solve the problem at this level. Never. You'll just create more and more problems. So we're talking here about the universal human being, somebody connected to the universality of knowledge and not just this particularization of problem solving based on do it, right? So this is Norberto Keppe. This is a great
analytical trilogy. Trilogy comes from three. So what are the three aspects that Dr. Keppe unifies or shows the unification that already exists in them are theology, philosophy, and science. And analytical because it's a scientific method.
Yeah. And in human beings, that would be feeling, thought and action, right? Not just correcting the action, but understanding the feeling and thought that led to that action. This is very, I mean, it sounds rudimentary, but we don't practice that in our modern world. We don't. We don't want to see the cause of our problems. We just want to solve them. I don't want to see why I have this illness. I just want to take a pill and get better. In fact, when I first started to learn Portuguese, I just wanted to take a pill so I could learn Portuguese instantly. However, I had to suffer the difficulties of my own resistances in order to be able to learn to speak Portuguese. Yes. So now our tool. Sari, would you like to say a little bit about our little tool of interiorization?
Yeah, not so little. So, and it goes well with the Chris question. What should I do? How can I deal with? I have this conflict in my work, and the person says this and does this, and I get very irritated, upset. I don't have emotional competence here. This is my crucial point here. So, Dr. Keppe has developed a technique of interiorization that is very useful when we want to understand this part that we don't know about ourselves. In general terms, we see ourselves through others. Others are our mirror. And if I accept to see what I'm seeing in the mirror, in the other person, in myself, it's easier to have the relationships. However, in my everyday life, I get upset, irritated. There are many things I don't want them to be the way they are. And here is where is my blockage coming up. It's mainly about that I don't want to see something. I don't want to deal with this consciousness that is appearing. And why don't I want to deal with this situation externally? Because I also don't want to deal with it internally. The problem of the other person is showing me something about myself that I don't like to see so much. So I get irritated. I want to block the perception. And this technique of interiorization helps us to do the opposite, to see the external world and try to understand the internal world. For example, my students tell me, teacher, I get irritated when somebody cuts the line. But teacher, I never cut the line, so it doesn't work like that. But it's not exactly like this. It's what comes to your mind. What do you see? What do you associate the person's attitude? You will see disrespect, arrogance. You will see that he thinks he's the most important. He has to go. So maybe in my life, I have similar attitudes.
Not in that situation necessarily, right, Sari?
But in other situations. And if I take a look and try to interiorize, try to see these attitudes in myself, I can find lots of relief and peace. I'll become more tolerant with the perception. And then I'm able to deal much better with the problem. With my kids, because they drive me crazy sometimes, with my employees, with family members, whoever it is, if I deal better with myself. So on this video, we have Dr. Claudia explaining more scientifically what's the process of interiorization.
Great.
Na psicanálise tradicional, Freud se utilizava do divã, da associação de ideias e da análise dos sonhos para a pessoa ter um contato, uma conscientização do seu inconsciente. Keppe visa usar um método estritamente científico, também se utilizando do divã, da associação dos sonhos, da análise de atos falhos, para que a pessoa, mas não só isso, para que a pessoa se se conscientize da sua vida interior. Mas como vida interior, Keppe entende muito mais do que o inconsciente. Entende esse campo todo de sentimentos, de pensamentos, de intenções e da consciência. Agora, como obter melhor esse contato com o interior? Porque tudo na nossa vida, na sociedade, e a própria inversão da qual nós somos sujeitos, nos leva a olhar para fora, a reparar nos nossos pais, na sociedade, no nosso marido, na mulher, nos filhos, no patrão, no mundo externo. E não perceber que é um mundo interior, que existe um universo muito mais rico, muito mais amplo do que qualquer coisa que está no exterior. Mas também a nossa psicopatologia. Então, Keppe se utiliza na prática de um elemento que é a técnica da interiorização, ou até do espelho, poder-se dizer, uma dialética, para que a gente possa ver, quando nós nos incomodamos ou nos admiramos com algo em outra pessoa, a gente pode, através de associação de ideias, colocar aquilo no nosso interior. Assim como nós não podemos olhar para o nosso rosto, nos conhecer, precisamos de um espelho, nós nos utilizamos do mundo exterior e do outro para esse espelho, para vermos esse mundo incrível que está dentro de nós e que não está sendo devidamente utilizado. Então, essa técnica de interiorização permite, inclusive, que o analista não precise fazer nenhuma espécie de interferência na vida da pessoa, na vida psíquica. Ele, através dessa técnica, ele permite, ele facilita que o cliente se conheça por dentro.
You know, it's so wonderful to see that, Sari, because I was thinking of Chris's comment, you know, that we don't need to intrude by telling the person what they need to do. We need to help them become conscious so that the person has the consciousness to be able to decide what they need to do rather than imposing. You know, so much of our modern orientation today is to tell people what to do. We're going to create an action plan for you to solve this problem. And there's none of that in our work, right? All of it is about what does this represent for you? What are you seeing? What do you associate with this idea? For you to understand what this situation really means, so that you can take steps to deal with that yourself. Very beautiful, very respectful of the human being. Right. So this is what we do. And in our course, our leadership, what we used to call leadership, we're now calling conflict management course. We include regular sessions with Claudia Pacheco in workshops, learning how to deal with conflict in this trilogical, interiorized way. So they're very active workshops dealing with specific problems that people bring to the meetings that can then be resolved through this process. So it's very dynamic and very practical in that way. So our course is this. This is the course that we're talking about today. We have many things happening in our university. My gosh, every week it's something new. So in this particular course, which we're really excited about, and Sari and I have been teaching this for about 4 or 5 years in various forms, online, in-person classrooms. This will be an online opportunity because we're having, as you can see, people from all over the world who are joining us, Vancouver, from Holland. So the content of this course, we will deal with these basic concepts constantly throughout the course. All right, it's not one thing and then the next. The fundamentals of analytical trilogy will be through every part of the course, because the fundamentals, we need to come back to the fundamentals all the time to understand the concepts that we're studying. We'll look at sociotherapy, exercising true power, because, you know, this world needs conflict managers, my friends. It needs you and me and people like us to be able to handle these conflicts that arise in families, in schools, in work situations, in international situations. We need people trained with the emotional competence and the interiorization, the self-knowledge to be able to deal with these problems. We need people to act in terms of a sociotherapy, helping the world to get better, as the society is very inverted and very crazy. We have a whole bunch of work on the new science of energetics and health, the impact of human thought on society, again, sociotherapy and the disinversion of economics, the laws. This is a huge area of interest for us and for the world. Pathology of the United States and its influence on society, the dominant culture, and how the influence from there, we've mentioned a couple of things in psychology today, but in every area you're going to see that. The science of healthy relationships, methods and techniques of research and higher education, and of course our conflict mediation modules, which will happen every week.
And conflict mediation is with the Dr. Claudia Pacheco, and they are practical, very practical workshops, yes, in addition to the theoretical part that we're learning and the little sessions, weekly sessions that like we are having today.
As well, we like to get the students as actively involved in producing things, so we will have many opportunities during the course for you to speak about the concepts, to do presentations. We have a social project that we work on in every class, right? A good action project to do something that benefits the community. We have a blog being produced now. We've had people doing videos and interviews and all sorts of things to try to find a way to spread this information into the world, because it needs to get out into the world. It's like the world is dry, like a dry sponge needing this water of consciousness. Oh, this is our content of our course in general, broad terms. We study all of the books that have been translated into English of Dr. Keppe and Dr. Claudia Pacheco's work. So we have a lot of very deep study of texts and videos, discussions, forums, to be able to understand this work, to be able to use it in your own life and in the life of helping other people. Benefits? Well, for sure you'll improve your health and psychological balance, that's for sure. You will often see career development come as a consequence of this, because you're becoming more adept at dealing with the conflicts and the problems that come up. And so people recognize that. They say, oh, this person is able to deal with problems and difficulties, so it creates promotion inside work. Manage conflicts, more social responsibility, enjoy good action. Yeah, it's like, oh, wow, this is fun. Become a social change agent. You'll develop your communication skills immensely, especially in English, of course, because the course is in English. Increase your productivity and income. So these are all practical things that will benefit you. But I just want to add one thing that we don't have on the list. I think your sense of your spiritual life, your contact with your essence, your soul. I think there's big benefits to be had here. The essence of life, your purpose in life, why you're here. Each of us is here for a purpose, for a cause. You'll be able to clarify that much more through this process. Why am I here? What am I doing? And then have some tools to be able to act more effectively in the world based around your purpose in life. So that's our course, you guys. It's very beautiful. It starts in March, an 18-month course, 360 hours. This will be a combination of online study and then twice a week, actual online interactive classes with Claudia Pacheco and with teachers like Sari and I and other of our really well-trained professional team. There's the investment. There's a very reasonable 250 reais registration fee, and the price of 480 reais per month, extremely reasonable price, especially if you're from Europe or North America. That's really a good price for that. And a couple of phone numbers there. If you're interested, make a note of those. Please talk to Monica or Giselle. I think Monica's on the call now. Chris, yes.
Yeah, actually that's my point, because I see that the course is, for me, is a real good investment, and I can see myself doing not only this course but several others.
I like your spirit.
opportunities.
I like your style, Chris.
But the point is that when I was searching for further information, I understood that there are fixed times. And I was thinking how I'm gonna manage that with the time difference. And that was something that I was kind of hesitating a little bit.
Sure.
Because
the time difference is what, 4 hours now for you?
Between 4 and 5, depending on the time of the year, and very short time, 3 hours. But the thing is, how I'm gonna attend the moments when we have the classes, presential moments of online interaction. And that's what put me a little bit down, to be honest, because I don't know what are the solutions available.
So you should talk to Monica. I think you are in a point to talk with Monica. She has been working out solution, and one of the solution is Saturday, because it works better for the European and so forth. So there are some solutions. So talk to Monica, and she can see your need and how it's going to happen and what are the requirements, what you're supposed to participate, what is not so necessary to participate, and what you're able to do on the platform, see the recordings. So please call Monica. She will assist you with this, this type of problem.
Yes, because the fact that the session is recorded is already something, add already some value for me, because then I have the chance to review what was talked.
Exactly. And I think, Chris, if we have a lot of interest from places like Europe, we will have to create a time that works for them. So we will work on that too, So we're working now with what we have mostly interest has been from Brazilian. And now as we're expanding internationally, we will find a way to adapt to that. So talk to Monica, okay? We'll figure out something. So you're not feeling depressed. I don't want you to feel depressed. What do you associate? Well, let's do a little interiorization. It's great that you. No, I'm joking. You're enthusiastic.
Don't be depressed because of that. Yeah, talk to Monica.
Don't be depressed.
She will assist you.
No, I was not depressed, but I at certain point I was kind of like, oh, it's so good, and I don't have the access.
I can't. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Have you ever noticed how interesting it is? We get excited. We want to do. We have this great impulse. And suddenly we start getting all these ideas. No, it's not going to work out. And this problem and that. We're going to work with those issues in the class, but it happens so frequently. And then there are many things we don't do because all these little ideas come to our mind. I had a student, she actually made the inscription in the school, and she told me that when she went out of the school, sat in her car, all the ideas started to come. And she said, oh, I'm not going to be able to do this. Oh, it's too difficult for me, this and this. And she said she arrived at home and called her mother. And the mother said, I'm so proud of you, daughter. You're going to take a post-graduation course in English. Go ahead. And then last month she finished her course. So that was fine. But it happens with us, Chris, with everybody. And these kind of things we have to deal with. We want to have emotional competence. Yeah.
Okay.
Chris, make a note of Monica's number. You can call her after the class, okay, and talk to her. She's on the line now.
Yeah, she raised her hand. Monica, would you like to say hello to them? Do you have your camera on?
Hello, everybody. Eu estou ouvindo vocês conversarem, eu vou poder atendê-los todos depois.
Chris speaks English.
Ok, Chris, sorry.
Eu também falo português.
Legal! What a relief!
I can speak with you, okay? I will call you and we can talk and resolve everything. No problem.
Sure. Thanks.
Okay. And this number is mine. You can speak today and Monday too. I am totally free for you.
Thank you. I will call you as soon as we finish this session.
Just
Okay.
do it, Chris. Great.
Okay, I'm here.
Thank you for your attention. It's great to have been given this opportunity.
Of course,
Yeah.
Chris. Yes.
You are welcome. Everybody is welcome.
Thank you.
So, my friends, there we are. That's our class on emotional competence, the importance of that. And I hope it was of use to you and that we will see you more in our various activities that we're doing. And this course is the one we're highlighting at the moment because we think it's really, really valuable and very special course. So we hope that we'll see some of you joining us.
Okay.
Bye, everybody. It's been a great pleasure to be here with you today.
Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you all.
Bye, everybody.